If you have a small freeze-drying business, a startup, and you've been frustrated by the fact that commercial machines are just too expensive, too big a step, well, there's some good news. What if I told you that there is a brand new product launch by my favorite OEM, TechSource Systems, that you can use to launch your business into the next level? That is an interim level, not to go from boutique all the way up to full commercial production, but that in-betweener step. So, hello, I'm Gene from Suntour. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're coming back, then welcome back. I help people all over the world with freeze-drying questions, and today I'm going to cover a topic that I think everyone wants to know, and that's about new equipment. I have an inside view to TechSource Systems. I help them quite a bit. I actually have had quite a bit of input into the design of this machine, and so I have access to the full technical specs. I have been given a sheet from TechSource Systems, and I am going to take you through that now, step by step. So let's get right to it. So here's the technical specification sheet, the full tech spec for the TechSource TSS111E or E111, the Econoline. That's the unit that we're talking about. And if you want this document, if you want to see the whole thing, it's got a lot of stuff in here that I probably won't be brushing over, all the verbiage and whatnot. Yeah, you can just reach out to me. I'm going to leave a link in the description below. If you want this document, just reach out to me. I'll send it to you. So let's talk about this unit. So this unit looks small, like a Harvest Right size or a Blue Alpine size machine. But this thing is about the height of a refrigerator and a little bit deeper than a refrigerator. And it weighs about 750 pounds. So this is not a small unit, right? This thing is pretty large. Each one of these things that looks like a shelf rack in there, each one will hold a heater, which is a shelf / heater. And on that heater, you'll be able to put a full-size baking tray. Now that's the 18 by 26 by 1 inch deep baking tray, the kind that you would get from webstore.com or Amazon. They're the ones that are just called a full-size baking tray. And you can get aluminum or stainless steel or whatever you want. This unit will hold 11 of those. There's electrical sockets. These electrical sockets in the back. You can see this shelf slides right in and out of that electrical socket. So all you have to do is push that shelf in there and you make electrical connection. Now, this is really nice because if you need to take all your shelves out to sanitize your system because you're trying to do a USD or FDA inspection, or you want to change your products and just want to follow GMP practices, it's really easy to get all these shelves out. You can also take the entire rack out. Now you have a bare cylinder for pressure washing or spraying. You can put sanitary fluid in there, sanitizing fluid, and it's really easy to do that. Furthermore, these shelves all operate independently, meaning electrically, so if you need to have 3 inches between your shelf because you've got really large parts on that you're freeze drying, let's say you're doing some turkey hearts or some duck heads or maybe some meals that are a little bit thicker than the 1 inch that'll fit between these shelves normally, now you've got 3 inches between. So this is the most flexible system that's out there, whether commercial or otherwise. There is literally no other system where you can simply take some shelves out. Also, for example, let's say you wanted to do a test batch. You don't want to risk an entire load. This machine can do about 75, 80 pounds, but you don't want to spend 75 or 80 pounds just doing a product test. But you can take all these shelves out and just leave 2 shelves, one above and one below. One shelf radiates down on the one below. And then you could just run one shelf at a time, one tray at a time. So you're not going to risk as much. Of course, you can load that tray with whatever density you want. Typically, TechSource likes to recommend 6.5 to 7.5 pounds per tray as a normal load. So you're talking about 70 to 80 plus pounds per load. And that's how many pounds you can actually dry in a period that's 24 hours or less. Now, you can load those trays a little bit more. You get to the point where you really can't stuff any more material in. Don't listen to certain OEMs who say that you can put 11 pounds in one of those trays. I mean, you can if it's ground beef and you want to let it run for, say, 50 hours. It's a weekend run or something like that. Okay, but for the most part, you want 6.5 to 7.5 pounds per tray. Now, I've seen test data from this machine that actually shows it evaporating 80 pounds of water, which would be the equivalent of about 90 plus pounds of product, right? Because your product is not 100% water. So I've seen the data. This machine runs really well. Now, we'll talk about some specifics about this machine pretty soon. I wanted to zip over to this view instead, just to sort of talk about what it's built of. Your chamber is stainless steel. Now, TechSource's units in the past in this size range have been aluminum, 1-inch thick aluminum. But making a cylindrical chamber out of stainless steel allows it to be much thinner. So this chamber wall is only a 1/4 inch thick. I say only, that's probably 3 times thicker than what you get on your typical small freeze dryer. And that's part of what causes this unit to be 750 pounds when you're trying to move it around. This chamber is actually made in Utah by a guy who is an expert welder for vacuum systems. I've seen his work. I've watched him weld. This guy is legit. It actually takes a very specialized skill set to properly weld up something for vacuum. Lots of people have tried it. They say, oh, come on, I weld up stainless steel systems all the time that hold 700 psi pressure. How hard can it be? I'm telling you, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Having somebody that can weld at that level is really critical. The rack that goes in here is made out of aluminum, and on each one of these channels that you see here sits an aluminum shelf. The shelf looks like this, right? So this is actually you're seeing the bottom. The other side of this shelf is actually blacks, right? So it's black anodized aluminum. And it's black and anodized for a reason. It makes it more wear resistant, but it also gives you a better emissivity, right? So it actually emits heat better, and it allows the system to heat the trays better. And this particular shelf you see has 2 leads, one on either side. That's for the power to the shelf, right? This is a heater. This orange part is the silicone heater that's thermally bonded on. These inner ones are for 2 sensors that you kind of can't see here in this blown up view. The resolution is not good enough, but there's 2 sensors embedded inside the silicone here. That's what actually tells the machine what temperature the shelf is, so it can properly control the temperature of the entire zone. This system also has the drain line right in front. Now this drain line, let me zoom in on this, is a standard ball valve, but it's got a connection on it for connecting a standard garden hose. That's actually very convenient because a lot of people will want to put a hose on there that drains directly to their drain lines, or to put a hose barb on there or a hose tail on there that goes into a bucket. The door on this thing is full view, clear acrylic. The acrylic has to be 2 inches thick in order to resist the pressure that goes across this. Why would they go with an acrylic door instead of a steel one like they have on their other units, or aluminum? It's so you can see in there. You can see what's going on, because this is actually going to be used a lot in the industry as a prototyping unit to make sure that people can, so it makes sure that people can see their product, right? Sometimes you have product like slurries, like liquids and purees and stuff, that when you draw vacuum, it starts to foam. Well, you can see that happening in real time in here. So the acrylic door is actually really nice. It also has an O-ring as the seal, right? So you don't have some kind of complicated procedure to change the seals on this thing. You just pull this O-ring out and put the next one back in. I think I have a little bit of film footage. It takes literally seconds, less than a minute, to change the seal on this thing. And this has been tested over and over and over. This is the standard sealing that TechSource units use, and they can usually draw to sub 1 millitorr pressure ranges if they have the right pump attached. So these things they're not just good, they are outstanding. All of the fittings in TechSource unit use O-ring seals. There are no threaded fittings with Teflon tape. Those are really crap. vacuum fittings. The Teflon tape leaks all the time. So you really want a O-ring sealed vacuum fitting on everyone, the door and all the other fittings as well. You'll also notice if I zoom right in, there's a little valve handle here, this little black valve handle. That is actually your vent. Now this system has a manual vent. This is a system that had been stripped of all the bells and whistles so that you're not paying $90,000 for this unit, which is what the similar size one from TechSource before was. This is a manual valve. It does not go to the drain line. This is your drain valve. This valve actually vents your system through the vacuum line, which is a clean line, which is where you're supposed to vent from. Now, if you watch my video called Is There Hazards Baked Into Your System? If you've got bacteria, if you've got mold spores or whatever, it's going to be right here in your drain line, right on the other side of that valve. And so when you open that valve and your system's at vacuum, you start pulling air in to vent your system, that air is going to go through there at sonic speed. And that's going to atomize all that bacteria and mold or whatever else you got in there, mildew, and it's going to blow it all over your product. Has that ever happened? Yes. There's documented cases, like even in commercial machines, where a system was vented through the drain line and it contaminated all the product. So you might be contaminating your product after it's done just by venting through the drain line. If you're doing that, there are kits out there that you can get to modify your small machine so that you're not doing that anymore. Just check out my channel. I have an entire video about it for some systems. I just saw that Crunchco just released a modification for harvest rate units that looks like a really, really nice, easy modification, and it's not very expensive. It's like $50. I highly recommend, if you are venting through your drain line, you go and get that. Okay, the refrigeration system on this unit is on board. The refrigeration system is inside the cabinet here, and it is an air-cooled refrigeration unit, and that means that the air blowing out these vents is going to be warm. So this unit actually will heat your room. Now, you know my thoughts on that. You've seen it on other videos on my channel. You don't want to be blowing that heat into your room. Now, if you're going into big production, let's say you're going to have multiple small machines, you need to start thinking about how you're going to manage that heat. I highly recommend you get a full-size commercial unit as soon as you can, where the refrigeration system will be located outdoor, exhausting the heat outdoor where it belongs. If you have, say, 2 or 3 of these units, you can probably handle that, particularly if you have high ceilings in your facility or if you live in a cold region. If you don't, there will be a modification coming out sometime from TechSource that will be able to address that. But for right now, this is an entry-level unit, so you will have to deal with that heat. The refrigeration system also, well, the compressor, right, this part down here is just half of it. The other half is here, wound around the outside of this chamber. Now, in every other TechSource system freeze dryer, as is the case with all commercial freeze dryers, you have condenser plates that are located inside of your unit. And that costs you, right? That costs you a lot because those components, not only do they have to be specifically formed to handle the coolant, but they have to penetrate the vacuum chamber, and all those things add up in cost. You know from your use of the small boutique freeze dryers that the most economic way to do it is to wrap the cylinder with your coolant coils, and that is what has happened on this. This is one of the things, one of the bells and whistles that has been stripped out of this system. So the cooling coils are on the outside of the chamber, and in the case of TechSource Systems, there's 3 different independent coils, each with its own thermal expansion valve to give you an absolutely uniform cooling profile from the front of the unit all the way to the back. Now, why that's important is it gives you the maximum amount of cold surface to act as your condenser. The better your condenser, the lower your pressure is while you are freeze drying. The vacuum pump for this system is a Leibold rotary vane vacuum pump. Now, why that matters is because Leibold makes the best vacuum pumps in the entire industry for this particular application. Now, this isn't a cheap vacuum pump, right? It's a rotary vane, but it's not your $99 Harbor Freight special. This is a industrial rotary vane vacuum pump, 2-stage, and it has an integrated high efficiency exhaust mist filter, this thing was not going to blow oil smoke all over your room whenever you do your chamber pump out, like I'm sure you're familiar with. It's not really smoke, right? It's oil mist. It's atomized oil mist. But this filter is so good. I've seen video footage of the exhaust when the system is using or pumping out fast, where you have a black light behind the exhaust plume and you can't see a single particle moving through that black light. Now, black lights actually illuminate the mist so that you can see it quite easily. Also, what you get with this system is you get this huge oil reservoir. So this whole bottom 3 or 4 inches of this mist filter is your oil reservoir. That gives you 4 times the amount of oil in your pump, which means you have 4 times longer between oil changes. But the fact is, between having that extra oil and having this gas ballast valve, if you operate it properly, we've seen these pumps run for years without oil changes on freeze dryers. So that's something that you should think about, right? How often are you changing your oil, and how often do you have to rebuild your vacuum pump? You get a good vacuum pump, you get the performance. If we want to look at the technical specs of the system, we can see some interesting things, right? So this refrigeration system that I called out before, this is a 6,000 BTU per hour refrigeration system, but it's not just 6,000 BTUs per hour. It's 6,000 BTUs per hour at a temperature of minus 40. Now, if this is a temperature of minus 30, this would be 9,000 or higher. If it was minus 20, it'd probably be 12,000 or higher, right? When you start operating any kind of system like this, near the operational limits, you get lower and lower performance, in this case, capacity. So the fact that it actually gives you 6,000 at minus 40 means that this system is a really, really good refrigeration system for this. And I've seen it. I've seen it operate this, right? I've seen data from, evaporating 80 pounds of pure water and depositing it on that condenser, and the pressure never goes above 750 millitorr. Now you may think, 750 millitorr, that's way higher than I have in my harvest rate. Well, the fact is that that's an arbitrary number that was picked by Harvest Rate Corporation that actually has nothing to do with reality of what conditions you need inside your freeze dryer to get your product out of there in the right condition and in the right amount of time. If you have questions about how to set that pressure in your harvest rate, you should reach out to me. I can help you with that too. This system is a single phase 230 volt machine. Now, people like to have 115 volts, but remember, or if you don't know this, if you double the voltage, you cut the current in half. Now, current is the flow of electricity. Voltage is like the pressure. Current is like the flow. If this was 115 volts, then I'd need 66 amps. Now, most breakers in most houses only go to 50 amps, right? That dryer breaker that you've got, that range breaker, those are 50 amp breakers, right? Often the breaker for an entire house is only 100 amp service, maybe in older houses. Nowadays there are 200 amp services, but still, if you're trying to run a 66 amp machine on any circuit in your house, you'll never get it to even start. It'll trip all your breakers right away. So you need to have 230 volts for this machine. That's just what you start to get into as you get into commercial machines. You go any larger than this, you'll be into 3-phase power. This is the best machine I've seen running at single phase of any of the machines that I've seen. The chamber footprint here, you can see these are refrigerator size dimensions, right? 32 inches wide, that's about what your refrigerator is. 40 inches deep. I think I measured my refrigerator yesterday. We're looking for a refrigerator for my home. It was 30 inches. So it's a little deeper than a refrigerator, but it's about the same height. Even though it's 750 pounds, remember with those casters that I told you about, I was able to push that system around using one finger. Those casters are so smooth, they just roll like a dream. You can see those casters here in this photograph. If once you get it into place, there's leveling feet that you can drop to lift the system up off of the caster so it doesn't roll around, so it stays put. In the back of this machine, not shown, maybe I can show you a little bit of video footage that I took at the factory. There is a cord. This system just has one single supply of power that goes in, 230 volts, 50 amp circuit. You just have a NEMA 6/50. So the NEMA 6 is the class. The 50 is 50 amp service. That plug will just plug right into a standard receptacle that you've got in your shop or in your home. Now, I don't really think this unit is something for being at home unless you have it maybe in your garage. And the reason I say that is because it's 750 pounds. That's an awful lot of weight in such a short or small period or small footprint. And not only that, that weight is resting on these casters. I wouldn't be very comfortable rolling these casters across something like the hardwood floors of my house. So if you've got it in your garage, though, especially considering you can ventilate your garage to exhaust that heat out, it would probably work there. But this is a unit you should be thinking about having in a commercial facility. This unit is PLC controlled. So PLC stands for primary or programmable logic controller. And the particular PLC that this uses is called the Groove Epic. This is a very popular PLC these days. That is, it's open source, meaning that you can access the PLC. If you get a PLC that's an Allen Bradley, for example, it's much more, let's say, universal in the United States. But Allen Bradley has a lot of, let's say, IP controls and stuff on their equipment. They charge a lot of money. So this PLC is a low cost but very highly capable PLC. You'll notice here that you see two screens. This screen is, in this case, an iPhone or some kind of smartphone. And that matches this screen that is actually on the PLC itself. So you have a basic screen that's on your PLC for controls, but you can also control this machine with any device that you can connect to your network. Now, this is how you would actually want to control this machine, is by connecting it to your network and controlling it with your tablet, your phone, or your PC, or all. And if you want to dial in from a remote location, you have to establish access to your local network at your business, which means a VPN connection or something like that. So what a PLC is it's a computer section and it's a relay section. So the computer makes the decisions, and the relay section, well, there's inputs and outputs too, right? So some of these sections are going to be sensors are connected up to here, and it's translating it into digital signal that goes into your computer section. And then that will make some decisions and make outputs that then go to these relay sections, which are basically like switches that go on and off to turn various components on and off. For example, it turns on and off your heaters, or it turns on and off your pumps or your chillers or whatever, right? So this is basically what's on the inside of your system. I think the one in this system doesn't have as many modules as this, but this is a very highly programmable and easy to operate system. I'll show you here now what the screens look like that you would be accessing. I'm just going to switch documents because this document here has some interesting things. This is their next unit larger, right? This has double the capacity of the Econoline, and you can see it's a square chamber style. I know I'm going to get to the screens and the programmability, but I just wanted to show you the close-up of those clips, these sockets that your shelves slip into. So when you push the shelf in, it just automatically connects into these sockets to make your connections for your power to your heaters and your sensors if it's that type of shelf. So here's the screens that you'll have access to on any TechSource machine. So the thing is that they make all these components interchangeable. For example, the heaters that they're using in this system are the very same heaters that they're using in their larger systems. The racks with their clips, even though the racks are different sizes, right? Some hold 48 shelves, some hold 24 shelves, and this one holds 12 shelves. but they're all the same system, right? They all have these sockets in the back. They all look very similar. The nice thing about that is when you have all the parts being the same, it's very easy to move into these very similar systems as you grow into your commercial production, but you also know that these parts are going to be available and easy to get, and they're not very expensive. But this control screen is also the same. So you're going to have indications of your pressures of all your components, whether they're running or not. You're going to show the temperatures that you have in your system, and some of your data is actually going to be charted out on this chart over the course of a half an hour. If you want to pick a process recipe, now if you've seen some of my videos, you know this already, but a recipe in freeze drying doesn't mean a cup of this and a dash of that. It means the steps that your machine goes through, your program that you go through from the beginning to the end to give you the result you want. So you can save up to 90 some odd recipes in this controller, and each one will have the parameters that you want to run through your system. Now, the TechSource Systems units are all temperature control units. They're not philosophy. They're not pressure control philosophy. This means that you're able to control the actual temperatures that your product sees through the entire batch very carefully so that you can control exactly what temperature and what kind of effect that temperature can have on your product. This is actually really important for some of the more sensitive products, like, say, live cultures and maybe some nutraceuticals like bioactive mushrooms and that sort of thing. So anyway, this is how you would program it, right? So here you'd pick a recipe to run it, or you can also select edit recipe. And if you're going to edit recipe, it takes you to this screen. And here's how easy it is to program. Right? You simply pick a temperature set point. You pick how long you want it to take there, how long you want it to ramp to that temperature, and then how long you want it to stand there, right? So in this case, this first step is just, hey, set my heaters at minus 40 degrees, which basically heaters off. And then step 2, say, hey, take it up to 0 degrees Celsius, which is basic freezing temperature. And I want you to do that over 10 minutes, and then I want you to hold for 10 minutes. Now, this particular recipe was selected for this document because it's just a test, right? But this is how easy it is to program these steps. Now, how you change these steps into a recipe is not really that hard, but it is something that people have questions about. And this is actually what I help clients with all the time, like on a weekly basis, how to change these recipes to optimize your system to get the quality you want in as short a period of time as you possibly can. This is not a toy. This is not a home freeze dryer. This is a commercial unit. It's big, it's beefy, it's heavy. It's rated to run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year in a row for years at a time. The vacuum pump is located externally, right? There's a connection on the back of this system that allows you to simply put your vacuum pump line on. It's one of those quick disconnect O-ring sealed vacuum lines. Perhaps I can show you a little bit of footage of how that operates, some footage that I took in the shop when I was there. You also then just connect the power to the unit. You connect the power of the vacuum pump to the unit, and then it operates the vacuum pump automatically. So this unit here, this whole system as is $45,000. Now, I know that's a lot more than you pay for, say, a Harvest Right or a Blue Alpine or a Stay Fresh, but you get a lot in return. You first of all get absolutely reliable production of 80 wet pounds per day, and it's guaranteed to be less than a day. Well, not guaranteed because it depends on what product you're putting in there, but almost all products are going to be less than 24 hours a day. You can rely on this, right? You can fulfill those customer contracts. You know, it's not like when you have product that you're just freeze drying for your home pantry. When you have customers that are relying on you to deliver your product, you can't afford to not deliver, or you're not going to have those customers long. A unit like this is built with the highest grade components that you can put into a machine of this size at this price point. This machine will run every day of the year for years in a row, and you can rely on it. Currently, TechSource is specifying about 8 weeks for delivery, so 2 months. So if you ordered one now, you'd have it about 2 months from now. I'm about to post this video in October, like the end of October or so. You'd probably get it by the end of December, meaning you'd probably have it right around the holidays. So plan that into your schedule. You don't want to make decisions on which unit to buy based on lead time. That's the wrong criteria to choose by, right? You need to just plan ahead a little bit so you can get the right machines for your production process. Now I've said it before, I'll say it again. You don't pay for a production machine. The production machine pays for the production machine, right? So this $45,000 price is going to be paid off in a few months. Once that machine is paid off, now you either have the frustration of operating a whole bunch of little units, or you're going to have the pleasure of having all of your production concentrated in one place, or maybe a second unit side by side. You're not going to have all the issues that come with failure of your refrigeration systems, failure of your sensors, failure of your system to be leak tight, right? So you have leaks all over the place, failure of your vacuum equipment. This unit is going to be something that will easily be much better than anything you've had ever before if you've only had boutique size freeze dryers in the past. If you're interested in ordering one of these machines, they are currently posted on the TechSource Systems website. That's just TechSourceSystems.com, all one word. You can also reach out to me. I can send you links. Maybe actually I'll put a link in the description below that goes directly to the website there. Remember, I do have a relationship with TechSource, so I do get a cut from every sale of this machine and every other TechSource machine. It's not what you would call a completely unbiased opinion, because I do have an incentive from TechSource, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. The reason that I've picked TechSource is because they make the best freeze dryers on the planet. I truly believe that. So I hope you got a lot out of this video, and I'll see you on the next one.